Obviously, Texans getting upset by the Vikings and the Buccaneers getting upset by the Broncos too. We'll get into that. Let's start with Texans-Vikings. I mean, what a shock. At no point at all was Houston in that game. Credit to Brian Flores and this Minnesota defense. I think that's what the deciding factor. We saw them last week hold the Niners to 2 for 10 on third down and pull off an upset 23-17. This week, just both ends. Sam Darnold went off, 4 touchdown passes, was so efficient. And then on the defense, CJ Stroud, Cam Akers had nowhere to go, nowhere to move, whether in the pocket or running the ball.
Well, first of all, I'm just so happy for Sam Darnold seeing this turnaround. Obviously, I have a bias for anybody coming out of the Pac-12, having gone to a Pac-12 school and working for that conference. So when Sam Darnold entered the league, I really wanted him to have success, but obviously didn't get off to a great start with the Jets. He was, seeing ghosts back during his time there. It was really bad. So it's exciting for him to see this turnaround. Obviously, he went to what everybody's calling quarterback rehab in San Francisco last season, and he looks like a completely different guy. But I think a big part of it, too, is the offense that he's running. I think just this type of offense that they're running, it gets the most out of a quarterback, and I think it clearly works for Darnold. But what I was just most impressed by in this game, obviously, was Brian Flores and the Vikings defense. Like, they looked absolutely legit. They've been getting pressures off of 4-man rushes, and they're just doing so many different things. Like, I feel like it's confusing for quarterbacks. Obviously, they had success against Brock Purdy last week. He's a younger guy, and definitely confused him. And then clearly they had a lot of success here today. What I'm most curious about, though, for the Vikings is how they're going to do next week against the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, a guy that is so good, as we saw this week, so good at reading defenses. And I think that if this Vikings defense can have success against the Jets, then this is a very legitimate defense and a very legitimate team.
Well, you say Brock Purdy's young, but in that system, and he still had Debo in that game, that in that system, working with Ayuk, working with Kittle and Jordan Mason, we saw there's nothing lost on what they're working with. So, they stunted Brock Purdy, that whole team as a whole. But, this is Brian Flores. Just the scheme is so tight. With Bobby Slowick, again, from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, now calling the plays for the Texans. He loves the outside zone run. Cam Akers in for a banged-up Joe Mixon. Had no room to run, and obviously that sets up everything on offense. But you said it too, it was 3-4-man rushes where it was getting to CJ Stroud right away. The offensive line was shooken up all afternoon long. And the home field advantage was definitely in effect. We saw 4 straight false starts by the Texans offensive line. That was a team mentally just collapsing. Now we saw, CJ Stroud, couple good completions to Nico Collins, obviously Stephon Diggs, ton of catches, almost 100 receiving yards. But a 34-7 loss, it was that defense dictated the game. And then you mentioned it, I'm looking forward to that matchup too with the Jets. On the same time, Sam Darnold, that's going to mean so much to him. But this is an offense where it's not Sam Darnold has to be Superman. Can you get the ball to Justin Jefferson? And we saw Darnold get knocked out of the game for a play, come back in. Aaron Jones had a huge day, both as a receiver and a running back too. That's an offense that can match up well with the Jets, who are pushed around at the line of scrimmage by the 49ers, who are run all over by the Titans. The Vikings come out, if they run well against the Jets, but it is that defense. How do you do against Aaron Rodgers, who's 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, quick to get the ball out, knows where to go with it? That's why he always waits for that play clock to almost hit 0 before he snaps it. He wants to take in as much info. But this Minnesota team, there's something special. Kevin O'Connell, credit to him. He's one of the best play callers in the NFL. We knew that with what he did with Kirk Cousins. It's a continuity for Darnold that's huge. You said he went to quarterback rehab with the Niners, goes to Kevin O'Connell. It's the same system, pretty close to the same verbiage as well. And he's running this so well through 3 games. He's looked like the most consistent quarterback in the NFL through 3 games. As crazy as that is, but that's what he looked like coming off a win with his squad beating CJ Stroud.
Yeah, and just a couple more takeaways, I think, also from this game. You talk about Darnold being such a consistent quarterback. CJ Stroud has been such a consistent quarterback, 7 straight regular season games without an interception, and it just felt like us speaking that into existence week after week kind of led to this. Obviously, throws a pick right away in this game, but he just looked uncomfortable. It just seemed like this Vikings defense was making him uncomfortable. He was leaving the pocket early. This was probably some of the most uncomfortable football that I've seen CJ Stroud play, I think. Tons of credit to that Vikings defense. And then also I wanted to echo what you said just about what US Bank Stadium was like in this game.
One of the best places to see an NFL game.
Absolutely, and just how into it they were. And
Yep.
Laramie Tunsil was called for 5 pre-snap penalties. You mentioned how like out of sorts that O-line was, and it's like that's just not a recipe for success. And it's a great place to watch a game, like you said, but there's other stadiums that are like this. There's other loud stadiums. You have to be able to play in a loud stadium, and it's interesting because Laramie Tunsil, he's such a great veteran guy. He's a really good pass blocker, but it's just like weird that he has all of these pre-snap penalties. And it's like, it's great if you're a great pass blocker, but like a pre-snap penalty is basically like a sack. So it's kind of something that just kind of stood out to me. And I was like, this needs to be figured out definitely for the Texans.
I believe it was either second or third down and very manageable, and it was false start.
Yeah.
And then watching that game later in the fourth quarter, another false start by Tunsil at the left tackle spot. That was, as I'm watching, I'm like, this is a team that's mentally collapsing. Like, we saw Stephon Diggs at one point huddle the offense up on the sideline, calling him out. That's why you bring the vet in. Like, that's what people are going to make jokes at Stephon Diggs, but that's why you bring him in around Nico Collins and Tank Dell, who are young. CJ Stroud is literally 3 games into the second season of his career. The offensive line is vets, but that's why you bring it in. But you just saw the Vikings just take an offense, put them completely out of sorts. The best thing that you can do to a quarterback, never let them be comfortable. And that's what Stroud was. That's what led to the success. This Vikings team, it was funny talking about the NFC North, how competitive it is. And with the Bears and all the talent they have, but that offensive line doesn't look like it can get the job done. But also with the Packers, and Jordan Love goes down. And then the Lions, and they're still looking good. But this Vikings team was like the cast-off, right? Like, we were like, they're good, but, with Darnold, with J.J. McCarthy, how good can that defense be? Stephon Gilmore's their best corner. Brian Flores, it's Kevin O'Connell on offense, and it's Brian Flores reminding us on defense. He's one of the best defensive coordinators out there because he just put out an A-plus game plan against the Texans.
No, it was great. And one other thing, too, that I just think should be commended for Darnold was like he toughed it out. He took a really big hit in that game, and there was a second where you're like, is he even going to be able to finish this? Yep. And he toughed it out, got through it, and I don't know, great game. Probably my favorite game of. Well, there was one other game, which I think we're going to get to in a moment, but one of my top 2 games so far.
Let's get to your number 1 game. What was your number 1 game?
Well, it's got to be the Denver Broncos. Seeing Bo Nix absolutely ball out and just crush that first drive. He went 4 for 4 passing. It was a 70-yard drive, ends it rushing in for a TD. Like, that was the game that we wanted to see from Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
And
is this more Pac-12 bias coming through?
No, honestly, no.
Is he an SEC or Pac-12 guy?
I think I just love like underrated guys or guys where like people have kind of like been like, oh no, Bo Nix, he can't do it. He's not.
I'm one of those.
Exactly.
I'm one of those.
And I root for guys.
You root for people to prove people wrong.
I want to have people have success. I'm like extremely positive, which is
shocked me.
Yeah, but it was shocking to see this turnaround. And coming into this game, I was actually concerned because you hear. They're saying like we need to slim down this playbook for Bo Nix because it's too complicated, and it's like, and it was already seemed to be like a slimmed down version of the playbook, and you have concerns like what's it going to look like if you're making this if you're simplifying it even further. But he was doing everything. He was running, he was completing passes. It was a great game.
It was. I didn't see it coming, especially Buccaneers after pulling off like an ugly win. What they did on the road at Detroit, but Baker getting beat up. It was the same thing of this Broncos defense. Patrick Surtain, his fingerprints all over it. Like right before the game, I'm wondering, who's he going to cover? Who's he going to cover? Is it Godwin or is it Mike Evans? And normally he'll take the guy that lines up wide. Godwin can be a heavy slot receiver. They've both been, especially Chris Godwin, has been really good this season. But 6'2", 205, the way Surtain moves, he's a perfect matchup for a guy like a DK Metcalf, who he shut down week 1, and now Mike Evans, who he shut down week 3. His defense set a lot up. But yeah, it was interesting to see Bo Nix go out there, execute. You mentioned that first drive. Back shoulder pass, dropped it right into the bucket. I go, oh, Bo Nix can throw further than 10 yards downfield. That's my knock on him. He loves his screens. He loves everything at the line of scrimmage. He had his mental lapses of bootleg out wide to his right. Play clock has to go off in his head, get the ball out. And then he had to eat it, and it was a really bad, negative play. But to me, the Broncos, that's the biggest shock of Sunday to me because Bo Nix has been bad. That offense hasn't looked in rhythm. The defense has shown up. And for a Tampa team with a lot of talent, same thing. They looked out of sorts. That's where I credit of the defense setting them up for success. Bo Nix didn't lose him the game, and I think that's what you want to see from rookie quarterbacks right now. They've struggled. Bo Nix has struggled. go out there and don't be dumb. Like Will Levis is one of the dumbest players we've seen through 3 weeks. But you're going to be blunt. Bo Nix went out there and wasn't dumb, and that's what set up the Broncos for success.
I think a big part of it is like Sean Payton and Bo Nix kind of figuring out, like, especially Sean Payton figuring out what type of quarterback Bo Nix is.
Credit to
and
him.
What he can handle. Because, I mean, obviously Sean Payton in the past has had like Drew Brees as a quarterback, and Drew Brees is one of the most like cerebral quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Was one of the most cerebral quarterbacks in the league, and you could put a lot on his shoulders. And for a rookie quarterback coming in, like you just can't put that on a guy. You need them to like just take some of the weight off of them.
Yeah.
And I think so far, at least in week 3, they were able to do that. And there was this one tweet that stuck out to me that I think kind of exemplified this and exemplified how Sean Payton was able to make things easier for him in this game. And it was on the first drive, the Broncos broke the huddle at 22 seconds, 21 seconds, 21 seconds, 6 seconds delay of game, 15, 17, 14. So they were breaking the huddle earlier. It wasn't taking as much time for him to have to communicate the offensive plays. It wasn't taking as much time for him to have to think about everything. And they were getting the ball off between like 5 and 7 seconds left on the clock. And I think that just goes to show kind of like when you're not overwhelmed with everything, when you're not like, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? Oh, like, what's this play? There's just too much going on. I think it made the world of difference for him. And it wasn't simple to the point of like the DBs knowing exactly what was going to happen every single play. Like apparently the Steelers said they could do the week before. So I think hopefully this is the start of something good for Bo Nix and the Broncos. It's not going to be like this every week, of course, but it's just great to see a rookie actually have a successful game when we haven't gotten to see that yet this season.
It was, and we had to wait till the fourth quarter of the Bears game to see a rookie quarterback throw a touchdown this season. We almost went 3 weeks, but Caleb Williams finding Rome Odunze.